Welcome everybody to the opening of the closed session portion of our meeting. I will pause for just a second to see if anybody joins us. Why do I keep doing that? Because I'm not muted. You have to tell me that every time. Okay, I don't see anybody joining us and I don't see anybody in the audience. So we will go ahead and close this portion of our meeting and the board will adjourn to closed session. Thank you. Oh, so, Welcome, everybody. I apologize for our delay. We started at 3:30 and it was a lengthy closed session meeting. So I'm very sorry to have to keep you all waiting. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with a roll call, please.
Student trustee Stead. Student trustee Osuna.
Here.
Trustee Thompson. Trustee Stevenson. Trustee Sarver.
Here.
Vice President Ginn.
Here.
President Dubois.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And our next step is approval of the agenda. Everybody okay with it? Can I have a motion to approve it?
You have to make a motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. The agenda is approved. So I have several things to report out on in closed session. First of all, I neglected to report out something at our last meeting on January 19th. By a vote of 5 board members in favor, 0 against, the Board of Trustees approved a settlement agreement for case number 2021-2022-9. Item 2.8 of our closed session tonight, the board voted unanimously in favor of accepting a resignation agreement of a certified employee effective February 16th, 2022. And the board also for item 2.9, public employee appointment, Government Code Section 54957. The board voted 3 in favor and 2 against. And that represents all of our closed session items. Yep. Did I say it backwards? Sorry. Correct that. So it was 3 against and 2 in favor. So thank you for correcting me. Okay, next item, we're at item number 7 of our agenda, approval of the consent agenda. Is there any changes? Everybody okay? All right, roll call.
Were there any public comments about the consent agenda?
No, no public comment.
Student trustee Osuna.
Yes.
Student trustee Thompson.
Yes.
Trustee Stevenson.
Yeah.
Trustee Sarver.
Yes.
Vice President Ginn.
Yes.
President Dubois.
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. So, Superintendent's recommendations?
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome Principal Karen Van Putten, Woodside High School Principal. She's going to come forward and present our recognition this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. President Dubois and board members, tonight I'd like to recognize our bilingual parent outreach team made up of staff and students who have helped increase the participation and level of engagement of our Spanish-speaking parents at ELAC meetings, the district's parent project series, parent workshops, Saturday morning cafecitos, and community engagement events. Their personal outreach via emails, texts, and the traditional old phone call, many phone calls, and their direct support during parent education workshops have dramatically improved our school's communication with our Woodside parents who may not have known how to connect with the school or historically felt like their voices were not heard. At our first ELAC or English Language Advisory Council meeting this year, after I took the principal position, we had 4 parents sitting in the MUR. In October, we had 60 parents attend and sign up to take on leadership roles at Woodside, as well as on our district level English Language Advisory Council. And that's a huge accomplishment. I'd like to give a special shout out to students Anthony Sandoval and Evelyn Carmona. They are leaders in our new International Student Ambassadors Club for their patience and empathy towards supporting parents, as they were especially notable as they assisted parents with learning how to navigate Canvas and Infinite Campus, 2 lifelines of communication, helping parents navigate them on cell phones so that our parents could stay connected to their children's academics. Anthony and Evelyn have also served as my public announcement Spanish language translators for our students when we have school-wide announcements. The commitment from our parents to learn ways to support their children this year has directly and positively impacted student engagement and increased students' sense of belonging at Woodside High School. Please join me in recognizing our Woodside High School bilingual parent outreach team. We have a couple of our members here, so as I call your names, come on forward. Maricela Lopez is our bilingual parent liaison. Molly Nixon, Wendy Porter, AVP. Juan JJ Cortez, one of our counselors, Jacqueline Grimaldi, counselor, Jimmy Hernandez, college career counselor, Jeanette Locke, school counselor, Francisco Negri, school counselor, and students Evelyn Carmona and Anthony Sandoval. Many of them are zooming in, and I think you can see them. So let's give them a huge round of applause. And I'd love to give a big round of applause to our parent leaders, and they have just really energized our school with their participation and coming out and joining us at the table, having a seat at the table, voicing their input, their needs, but they're also celebrating with us, which is so exciting. And all I can think of is how do we take 60 parents to 120 in the next year? We can do it.
Thank you. Without parents and without students, we would not be able to do the great work that we do every day. So we do thank you for your support. And then also would like to present to each of you the certificate of recognition. The Sequoia Union High School District Board of Trustees proudly recognizes each individual from this evening for your exceptional leadership, patience, empathy, and commitment to supporting the bilingual parent outreach team, Spanish-speaking families, and students of Woodside High School, February 16th, 2022. Congratulations, and thank you so much for your service.
Thank you very much and congratulations. Now for one of our favorite portions of the meeting, we're on item 9, comments from our student trustees.
Good evening, everybody. Isabel had to deal with some stuff, so I will be here alone tonight, but that is just fine. In the last few weeks, first off, we have been advancing our social media initiative by Isabel and I. Actually were in the Birch Room a few weeks ago, and we recorded an informational video, which was a lot of fun actually, and we had a lot of fun using the teleprompter. Simple things kind of blow our minds sometimes. And we did that with Voller. Thank you to Laura for your help with that. And also at our most recent SAC meeting, we had Assistant Superintendent Hansen come on and present a college readiness, I guess you'd call it like a packet, which was really, 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 really awesome for us to get to see. Members of SAC gave comments and suggestions for areas of improvement, although it was already really good to begin with. And yeah, we're navigating. We know a lot of guidance is changing around masks and just the whole precaution situation. So as that happens, Isabel and I want to remain focused on doing our best and putting all of our effort into best representing our peers across all sites, and being able to articulate that here to the board and make sure that, you know, people are heard, that their concerns are addressed, especially with the concerns around masking indoors. So with that, thank you for your time, and yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we're now on item 10, comments from the Sequoia District Teachers Association.
Hello. If I have sent each of the trustees an email just before the meeting, while you were in your other part of your meeting, with concerns that I have been asked to bring to the board by my colleagues in the San Mateo County Education Association, who work in the special ed programs offered by the San Mateo County Office of Education and at Gateway High School. I am very thankful that the superintendent has kept me in the loop and involved me in conversations concerning the future of Gateway High School and decisions that the county office is making regarding that. But my colleagues have asked me to address you because they are at their board meeting this evening with the county board about their concerns about the county office's plan to reduce special ed classrooms and close Gateway High School, representing roughly a 30% reduction in staff. But more importantly, their concerns about how services to students that they serve currently will be affected and what supports the county office is offering districts in maintaining supports to those students. And so they were glad to hear that our district was keeping Sdta in the loop, and I am now keeping you in the loop with their concerns. I will be back at the podium later in the meeting to be very happy about something else, hopefully. But I am here right now to be very happy to maybe preview a future board superintendent recognition. I was very excited to see on social media that Redwood High School was recognized as a 2022 model continuation high school. And as I said on social media, couldn't happen to a nicer staff. And so kudos to all of them, certificated and classified, and to Stephanie Ogden and their current vice principal, Mike Kaliga, and their former vice principal who did a lot of the work in helping get that program recognized. And most importantly, congratulations to the students who are getting a really great experience over there. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, comments from the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Do we have anyone? I think I see. I don't think there's anybody in attendance. No one's here. Thank you. Now we're on item 11 of our agenda. It's time for public comment. If you are here in the physical audience, if you would please fill out a speaker card and bring it to the dais. If you're in our Zoom audience, please raise your hand. Speakers are given 3 minutes and you will be timed. And the mic will be cut off at the end of 3 minutes. I don't have to be the police officer. Somebody else is doing that for me. I do have a couple of cards here, so I'll start with these and then I'll move on to the Zoom audience.
Sure. Should we just do a check about the total number and whether we want to do 3 for everybody or if we're going to go too long? How many cards do we have?
I don't think there's that many. There's 3 cards and there's 3 hands raised. I think 3
Okay.
minutes is fine because I like to hear this.
I didn't know how
Does
many
anybody else?
I didn't know how many cards you had.
Yeah, not very many. But I'm a bad person to ask. Even if we had 100, I would say 3 minutes. So, as my colleagues groan. So first speaker, Carol Ann Coleman.
Hey, can y'all hear me? Okay. Good evening. Thank you for having me. I basically, I'm a little premature on this, but I just wanted to thank everyone's cooperation for hopefully getting us a 2.5 raise. I'm being premature, I'm sure about that, just based on the inferences I just experienced. I shared with everyone, almost everyone. I've got the names of people who did not give a self-care kit. This is something that actually helped me during distance learning. I shared it with my students, and it's kind of expanded into a project for me, making sure that every student, every staff member, every person, our affinity groups, anyone who needs a self-care kit just to take care of themselves, that it's provided. I think it's really important. My mission last year at this time was to bring us all together. And I think all of us are in agreement that if we can bring all parties together, we will have a more cooperative district and we can lean into each other. My experience, I was also in the affinity group. I was part of an anti-racist, I consider myself a white person. So I was in one of the white folks affinity group. And this is the last part that I'm gonna share. As a member of one of the affinity fellowship for dismantling racism, I wanted to express the value of this incredible experience for me. Learning new leadership skills, gaining confidence in myself. I thought I never had, Ms. Hanson. Thank you for allowing us to take deep dives and look at ourselves. The thing I was really surprised was that there weren't more white folks signing up for this. And I feel in my heart, it's not happening fast enough, but I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that we become an anti-racist school district, an anti-racist state. So one of the in-services, we had a great in-service in January. And I actually overheard a couple of people saying, oh, well, we did the in-service so that there's no more racism. And that's just not true. And I just feel that at this moment, we all need to come together. And my time's up. Can I finish my one last thought? Just that I think it's up to white people to educate, and in the sense of BIPOC communities have bared the burden of having to educate people about racism. And I just don't think that's fair. And I'm encouraging my brothers and sisters to move forward. And I encourage the board to consider continuing the affinity groups. Thank you. Thank you for letting me go over time too. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is, I think it's, is it Leon or Liam? Leon. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Liam Russell, and I'm a junior at Sequoia High School, and I'm the president of the Sequoia Plant-Based Club. First of all, I just want to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to come here and speak today. I really appreciate that. And I just want to share that my club has been conducting a petition and a survey. So what we did is we went around at lunch asking people, would you support vegan options and meatless Mondays? And if we got about 150 signatures and only 3 students said that they would not sign it, and only like 2 said that they would support vegan options, but not meatless Mondays. So I thought that's a big enough sample size based on that percentage that I think this is a pretty big deal. People want this. Mr. Stalder also conducted a survey of staff members and found that around 25% would like to have more plant-based foods just for health reasons or because they're vegan or vegetarian, for environmental, ethical, everything. So me and my club would love to help in any way we can in trying to get the ball rolling with that and doing taste testing or just putting up signs or like helping to do a district-wide survey, just whatever we need to do, we'd love to help. And I'd especially like to thank Trustee Dubois for putting me in contact with Sandra of Food Services. I really, really appreciate that. And I look forward to being put on the agenda for a future meeting, if necessary, if we need to discuss this further or discuss any findings we have or how to move on as this plan keeps evolving. But thank you all for your help and for inviting me on, and I yield my time.
Thank you so much. We really enjoy hearing from students. Appreciate it. And we have a second speaker on the same topic, Scott Stalder.
Thank you for having me. I'm Scott Stalder-Skramutzos, a teacher at Sequoia High School. I came to Sequoia in 2009. I've been vegan since 2002 and vegetarian since 95. And I'm known as the guy with the big metal bowl at all of our events because I just bring my own food because there hasn't been food. But at the last event, the district put order out ahead of time. So we were able to order food, and a lot of people really appreciated it because one before that, there were a lot of people that for gluten-free or dairy allergies or different reasons were unable to eat what was offered, and they were really frustrated. And I'm happy that Liam's really spearheading some changes at the school and district. Excited to see that. And also that there's, every time I've emailed the board about different issues, I've always gotten a really appreciated response. So thank you for that. I would also like to see, in addition to the pre-orders, I think that's a super great idea, and then maybe some like follow-up after to just see how it went. I'm not sure if that happens with kind of the staff or anything, but I think that could help. And as Liam pointed out, I had 120 staff members respond to the survey that I put out. And the biggest thing was that they really felt heard. A lot of the time it's just like, okay, we show up and we don't know. And everyone, or a lot of people had comments in the end saying, thank you for asking, thank you for letting us point out what we need. Because we have people with IBS that can only eat certain things or have difficulty with their digestion. Among basics of it, 25% avoid dairy, from 18 to 43% avoid different types of meat, which, if you look at universal design, there are a lot of things we can offer that would hit everyone and make them happy and well-fed. And, thinking about our connection between mind, body, and what we eat, I think it's important to take this into account. Thank you very much for everything you do. I like your mask and also help with the Dream Club. So nice.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
So this is not an agendized topic, so the board is not able to comment. We do appreciate your feedback. I'm going to turn these two cards over to our superintendent for follow-up, so you can hear back. Thanks. And we do have some people in the Zoom audience who would like to speak tonight. Thank you very much. So first speaker is, and I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, Sia Verma.
Yes, thank you. My name is Sia. Yeah, so hi everyone. Distinguished board members, thank you for giving us a chance to speak today. My name is Sia and I'm a former student of Tide Academy, but am still as involved as I was last year in the Sequoia community. My colleagues and I, as a part of the Youth Community Service Program, are here to discuss mental health mediation within our schools. So I will be going over some background on what we wish to cover. My peer Sharon will go over some more background and then our proposal. And finally, Denise will go over the impact on the student community. So students in the Sequoia district feel that their concerns are not being very addressed due to the virtual learning last year and its lasting social impacts on student and teacher connections this year. Additionally, there has not been much conversation about the pandemic within classrooms, and students feel that they don't have someone to talk to about the issues that impact them the most, or they just don't feel comfortable doing so. So after conducting a survey like in the middle of last year, which was after virtual learning and like the beginning of in-person learning, we found that 82.4% of respondents did not let any faculty know of microaggressions or racial bias that they had faced. And again, this proves that students don't feel comfortable talking about these issues to those that surround them every day. Teachers have also been negatively impacted, and in many cases, administration isn't able to address their concerns, which hinders their ability to cope with their mental health issues, consequently impacting their teaching, and that impacts the students. The RAND Corporation, which is a reliable survey company, reports that nearly 25% of teachers around the US are considering leaving their jobs due to the extreme stress and pressure they're under. Again, this truly portrays the lasting mental health impact that teachers feel with the pandemic and in general. I will quickly go over some more statistics regarding students, and my colleague Sharon will go over the impact on teachers. So according to last year's California Healthy Kids Survey, 1,086 freshmen and juniors within the district considered suicide, and the chronic sadness or hopelessness rate has increased by 10% within the last year. It is now 38.5%. These alarming numbers must prompt action on this issue. We call on our education policymakers to find a way to allow us students to truly thrive in our community. That said, thank you so much for everything that you guys do for us. I think we really feel heard. But at the same time, I think that these issues must be recognized in some form. So I'll hand it over to Sharon. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, Sarahi Espinoza Salamanca.
Hello, board and superintendent. Thank you very much for making the time to hear our students. My name is Sarahi Espinoza Salamanca. I am the Youth Community Service Learn Commission Manager. And I just wanted to thank you for making the space for the students to be heard on concerns that they have, on issues that they feel are not being addressed or not being addressed enough currently. I hope that we can together work hand in hand with our students so that we can see the visions that they have come to life on all campuses across the district. I look forward to staying in communication with the Office of the Superintendent. We've had great conversation, and we also hope to one day be in a soon future agenda item to have dialogue with the board and superintendent about the topics that the students are going to be going over with you tonight. I also hope that we can figure out a way to rebuild a system in which the processes of the visions that the students have today don't have to take so long to be implemented. I know that a lot of the students are now in this campuses addressing the needs that they see now. Oftentimes, though, what happens is that these students graduate and don't see the changes that they advocate for. So I am hoping that we can together rebuild a system in which the students that are advocating for the change that they want to see can actually see that change while they are still students on their campuses. Thank you very much. And I look forward to staying in conversation with all of you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Denise Carrillo.
Hello, thank you. I'm just going to go over some statistics that we collected from asking Bay Area students all across the Bay Area how the COVID-19 has personally affected their mental health. So the most popular results were added stress, loss of routine, anxiety, shortened attention span, and lower energy levels. And so that supports the idea that a lot of our students are still suffering through mental health issues, even though a lot of the pandemic isolation and quarantine has ended, especially at schools. And also from the survey that we conducted, we asked them how they believe adding a school mental health mediator will help. And over 95% of the survey takers responded that they either believe that it will fully help or that they were at least open to the idea. And from analyzing our surveys, we can understand what issues we might want to focus on if we implement the mediation program. Additionally, we can see that it will impact us because teachers will have the resources to emotionally support students, and they will be able to learn how to determine early signs of any emotional distress that students might be experiencing due to COVID-19. And further, it will prevent the chances of students dying by suicide or further worsening any mental distress. Additionally, mental health counseling will be available for teachers to help them improve their own standard of living and any issues that they might be having due to COVID-19. And for more information, please contact us at ycs@youthcommunityservice.org. Again, that's ycs@youthcommunityservice.org. Thank you, and I yield my time.
Thank you. And now our last speaker, Sharon Song.
Hello, I'm Sharon and I'm a Learn Commissioner. I'm also part of the Youth Community Service. So going off of the fact that the pandemic has impacted us in a negative way, no matter who we are, it's very important to emphasize that COVID, as we all know, is not only affecting students, but also faculty and teachers. And according to the Daily Journal, 15% of teachers and 18% of staff report absent. So not only is this causing setbacks in the classroom, but it's causing disruption and a concern for health. And due to COVID, we know that stress levels have increased for many, and we would like to focus on implementing mediation for students through staff and teachers. We need to think about how we are preventing our teachers from becoming burnt out and promoting mental health wellness. And students, of course, are our main focus, but we also want to make sure that our mediators are able to address their own issues first in order to help our students during these difficult times. And having prepared mediators, I believe will help students with approaching their own mental health issues, as well as creating healthy communities within our school districts. And finally, I guess understanding that this will allow for many things, such as whether it be healthier communication, emotional support, stress management, mindful practices, and most importantly, our students feeling comfortable enough to want to share out about any inequalities or things they might be going through or they experience on school campus. So when it comes to our plan, we plan on introducing and recommending participation in programs for educators to further their understanding of how to deal with this stress and anxiety that they face, as well as students. And we also plan on having mental health counselors that will provide counseling for both faculty and students, like I mentioned. And there are a few programs we can partner with, one of them being the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center Network, and their 3-part training on mental health literacy for teachers and school staff. So that's all I had, but thank you for your time and thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you very much. So we are going to move on from the public comment. I see that another hand was raised. If you are welcome to send an email to the board tomorrow. And I'm sorry to cut the last person off. So our protocol as a board, we kind of identify how many speakers are there at the beginning of this section of the agenda. So please write us tomorrow. Okay, we will move on to item 12.1, the LCAP progress update.
Good evening, board. Josue, it's the other one. There it is. Thank you, sir. Annika's going to follow me with a very similar presentation. Woo! Here we go. Happy to be here tonight. Happy that the state has followed Dr. Williams' lead and is asking districts to give more regular updates to their boards about progress on the LCAP. So this year when Dr. Williams got here, she started a practice where we would come to you once a quarter and we would talk about the progress that we're making on goals and actions on the metrics. And in late November, I got a message from CDE saying, we have put in place a format where you need to give updates on the metrics and goals on your LCAP. So we already had the template in place when we got that piece of legislation. And for us, that was really good news. So what is being required of us in this round of the LCAP is that we give to you a supplemental update on how we're doing, that we give any mid-year outcome data related to the metrics that we chose last spring, that we give you where we are in our mid-year expenditures of the funds we said we were going to use in LCAP, as well as the monies from the state that have come in since then at the federal level. And in conjunction with that, that we also update the budget monies allotted in an updated budget overview for parents, since the one that they saw as a part of our board adoption last June. And I've got one asterisk to show you that for the first of the 3 documents that was attached to this item tonight, the CDE gave us a template that it was mandatory that we use. For the other 2 attachments that you have, we were told what we needed to include, but we were not given a template for it. My favorite direction was to please be as concise and thorough as possible. So what we did as a district was where you see the 2 asterisks, we took 2 of the pieces of information that they were asking for, and we combined them for you into one document. So I'm going to go through this evening, although I am far from the only person who works on this document. Although I can, okay, oops. I think I'm in the right place. And I've got for you a list of the authors who help with the writing of these goals. Some of them are here tonight, although not all of them are here. We're very close to midwinter break, and we had people who already had some non-work days scheduled, and they said, absolutely, please go take your non-work days. I think the rest of us can hold down the fort for you. So I apologize if I am overstating our abilities to do so. Worst case scenario, I'll write down your questions and I will get answers for you later. But I do want to give my deepest thanks to Jarrett Dooley, a very good writer who always has his pieces of the LCAP in a really timely manner. Diana Wilmot, who wrote goals that are very, very enthusiastic and hold us to high standards, because as she told me, it's a goal, you don't have to reach it, but it's supposed to be a stretch, and I know she's right. Simone Rick-Kennel, who came from her day job to represent the small schools in general for LCAP Goal 4. And then Dina and Crystal are not here tonight, but they do such a great job of providing us with the financials. And I have to say, it was really interesting to see where we are financially on the items that we budgeted since we adopted this in June. And last but certainly not least, Alvaro's holding down the fort for himself and Janelle When it comes to our unduplicated student groups, Janelle works our EL students. Alvaro does equally amazing work with our foster and homeless or students experiencing homelessness. And so he definitely weighs in because, as you know, with each of our LCAP goals, we have to speak specifically to how we are, in addition to what we're doing for everyone else, providing above and beyond for those unduplicated groups. So it did skip a slide. Let me back up really quickly to the supplement to the annual update, which is the first item, and I'm not spending a lot of time on this. It's the first of the 3 items. I'll go back to the one that everyone else weighed in on in a minute. This is just a very brief overview because so help me, I'm doing this in 15 minutes or less. This is a very brief overview of what went into the annual update. And so basically they wanted to know, they asked 4 questions. They said, what did you do to get community engagement around the federal funds that we gave to you after you already adopted your LCAP in June? Our answer was super easy because the things that we've used those additional federal funds on are all tied into our LCAP. So we were able to use a lot of that community engagement that we had already surfaced. What did you do with concentration grant funding? Nothing, because we didn't get any. What's been our ongoing communication with our stakeholders around our use of federal funds to support the COVID crisis and our recovery from distance learning? And of course, that is the return to school plan. It's all the COVID updates that you've been getting at the meetings. It's the superintendent's messages, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally, you adopted in late October the plan for ESSER 3 funds. We've used precious little of those to date because we're still using up some of our funds from prior federal funding. But I also told you what we've done with that thus far, which is we have funded this year's first semester paper tutoring. And we are working diligently, I can assure you, to find the folks for mental health supports, to build a robust EL summer enrichment and summer school program for our students with some wellness components to use up remaining funds. So here is the format for the document on which I'm going to spend most of my time. It's the one where we combined the 2 different areas that they asked us to cover, and that's the LCAP actions and mid-year services report. The format that they gave us to do this in was put in the goal, put in the rationale for why you chose that goal, put in the metrics and any metrics that are up to date that you now have measures for. Usually, like, you guys see the results of those metrics at the end of the year, but some of those metrics are already available to us. So they've asked us to report on those 1 quarter behind Dr. Williams. Remind us what the actions were that you chose. Tell us what the total funds were that you said you were going to spend on that item. And then how much money have you used for that goal to date? So that's the format that I'm going to quickly do this in tonight. I do want to caveat already that for the goals and the metrics, the board updated through the format of the governance goals 2 of our LCAP goals. So there was some rewording on equity, and there was also a change from as many students as want to return from distance learning. When the governor said everybody's returning from distance learning unless you do independent study, we updated that in the goals. And then we've also added another one in about data. And we'll need to talk at the end of the year about whether or not that comes in as a goal 6 in the LCAP or whether it can be separate as part of the governance goals and is already embedded, and you will tell me. But anyways, it'll probably be a little bit frustrating because we're not allowed to update those goals in the LCAP until we adopt in June, but we have every intention of doing that. The other thing that we have discovered in this fun process is that some of our metrics, and I will say I'm grateful to discover it now and not at the end of the year, but some of our metrics that we chose, we used 2020 data to compare this year's data to. And that was a mistake in some cases. We've always done that. You compare your most recent data with the next set of data. However, there were some special circumstances, like for instance, a much lower number of units needed to graduate. The fact that kids got pass, no pass for their grades in 2020 that make them very uncomparable to the data for 2020-21. So we'll be updating those when we go back. Jarrett Dooley, shout out to you because in your wisdom, you just used 2019. So we are going to go back and do that where it is deemed appropriate. So in the first goal, I'm going to spend most of my time going over the metrics for you. I'm not going over all of them. I'm going over ones that are a combination of we have the data and two, I want to tell you something about it. So the first one, of course, is about strengthening our quality instruction, that we want to improve the engagement because that's always an area of growth for us from our kids on the LCAP, that we want to make sure we have rigor, not necessarily difficulty, but that we want to challenge students to think on higher levels of understanding. And then all in the name of, we want them prepared for whatever it is that they choose to do when they leave us. So what you have here is some of the metrics for those goals, and I'm probably going to confuse you a little bit. So with the class of 2021, I underlined what happened to our results. We dropped -5%. Before anybody calls a reporter, I want to explain that because that's not as scary as it looks, okay? But what I did just for the format before I go into it, I put underlined what the metric result is right now. And then in parentheses at the end of each item, remember that LCAP is a 3-year process. We talk about what is it that we want to hit each year towards that final goal. Our final goal is that by 2024, the class that graduates in 2024, we will have 10% more of that graduating class meet UC A through G eligibility. So this is how to tell you how we're doing so far. And doesn't look very good. 2 things happened. We got -5 there for 2 reasons. Because we compared it to 2019. And 2019, when you might have gotten a D in a class that made you A through G ineligible, you got a pass. So our results skyrocketed along with much of the state in 2019. The other thing that happened was we had an honest error at one of our sites, and we had a breakdown in some communication, and we had a couple of folks who forgot to check off on their caseload who had met UC A through G. So for one of our schools, we're missing about 100 kids who met A through G. That's not the bulk of the issue, but that's certainly a variable. We have tried to correct that with the College Board. They were very, very nice when they said no, and they gave us the kudo. Well, it's really going to help your rates go up next year. So there you have it.
Just a real quick one. I think the kind of the missing year that we're comparing to is 2020, which was the first year within the pandemic, right?
Yes, that's what I'm going back to. Exactly. So that's why for that first one. So yes, for class of 2021, we're comparing it with the prior year. Thank you, Alan, 2020, which isn't the year we should have chosen. So we should have chosen 2019. If you compare where we did A through G last year compared to the good old days before the pandemic, we've gone up 3% overall, okay? So that's good news. African-American, Latina, Pacific Islander, they went up 1.2% from 2019. It looks like a scary drop. I'm not happy about it, but there are some real extenuating circumstances. So this is an example of the metric that we're gonna fix at the end of the year that I would love to fix now, but I'm not allowed to. I also have to be transparent when I tell you that our ICA results, we have to have a local testing measure. Our ICA results all went up, and I'm very, very happy about that. But I don't know how much of that is because students took it at home before, and this time they took it at school. I'm cautiously optimistic about it, but for the same reason that it's a little bit squishy, we'll have a much better comparison rate on that next year. CTE pathway completion, we need to get more students who are able to complete career pathways. We have lots of kids meeting the CTE requirement in ways that make the state very happy. We have a ton of kids doing concurrent enrollment. We get props for our relationships with those above us all the time. But as far as kids who actually take 2 or 3 courses, do the concentrator and the capstone, our percentile is not moving up for that. I don't know how telling -2% is because you have to count the capstone, and kids have 4 years to get through. Some of them take a two course CT pathway, some of them take a 3, so it's a little bit hard to measure, but it's certainly not a result that I'm happy about. And then you can look for funds spent to date on pages 3 through 8. Am I moving along okay for people? Okay. What was that, Carrie? Okay. This was so nice. Okay, equity is a behavior. We will update the verbiage on this goal. But the things that I wanted to point out were, I chose ELD and SED, even though there were some other groups there that we definitely track, such as our students experiencing homelessness and our foster youth. But because their numbers are so small, in some cases, it was like, we went down 7% because one fewer kid out of 10 hit a category. So I didn't, even though those matter, and when we see those kids and want them all to do well, it's not as telling a story as what I put before you here. So EL graduation rates went down 2%, but they actually went up 1% from 2019. Socioeconomically disadvantaged is the most, for A through G, -4, but actually it's up 2% from 2019. Which leads to a bigger conversation about, should we just be pass, no pass at the college level? And I don't know the answer to that. It's just interesting data on kids' applications. Again, you see what funds have spent to date. Goal 3, this is the MTSS goal. Chronic absenteeism and suspension rates are both down from 2019. Is that year to date, Jarrett, or for the year? That's fine. It's okay. It's good either way. Goal 4 was a good goal, but the metrics are a little bit they're not as solid as we would like for them to be. No one here wrote them. But anyways, the main metric is that for tied enrollment, we said that we wanted them to be fully enrolled. We did not define what fully enrolled was by the class of 2024. My guess is that part of the reason for that is because we have to decide on what really is full capacity for tied. If you figure 90 kids per class, grade level, it's 360 kids, but do we need a certain number of those students off campus because of the nature of the class, the number of bodies in the building, the reality of parking in the Bay Area? But impressive progress Simone has made there. This year's freshman class was 59 added, but you have to remember, no, that is right. That is good news. 59 added. To date, as of February 1st, they had 70 open enrollment requests, which is great. They've had 3 information nights. Here I gave you a little bit of background. 25 tours of 90 participants and direct outreach to all partner schools. Again, funding to date. And then goal 5 is about student engagement and those who wish to return. That is, of course, a goal that we're in the process of rewriting. And a lot of that data is going to come from the Panorama survey, open now. You'll get a report on that in March. We do, again, this year have 100% of teachers appropriately assigned. I didn't want to put 0% of teachers because everybody was appropriately assigned, so we had no growth. So I took poetic license and I just said 100% of teachers are again assigned appropriately, and we want to keep it that way all the way through 2024. Right, Todd? Yes, okay. And then that's all I have to say about that. The last item that was before you this evening that also just needed to be an update was what did we project and what's the actual budget? And I should have hit refresh. Josue, are you able to hit refresh on this? If not, I'll just tell you that we've got about a $22 million difference between what we thought we had, what we projected for a budget in June, and what our actuals are now. Thank you, Josue. You're the best. And that is all that I have for you.
Thank you very much. Does the board have any questions or comments? Alan?
So Bonnie, I sent you a bit of a love note earlier today that, I mean, this is a report that is, incredibly, well, it's to the point yet comprehensive. But what it really does is it shows the range of things that have been on the radar for this district, the things that we are working on, the broad range of where the district continues to address student need as priority. And it shows resources being allocated, it shows creativity and work being done, and it shows positive impact on our students. It also shows the alignment of the different reporting mechanisms that we have in place, that there's a tremendous amount of great work coming in from all over the staff. But we're working in a format that we're familiar with, that really is appropriate to the work that we do. And the transformation of this from the bad old days of when I joined the school board 12 years ago are immense. This is really reporting on how is the district doing the job that the district has. And for the most part, it looks very good. I commented on kind of the mid-year or the midterm look at things, that there are places where, you know, we've seen a blip in an intervening year and we have dropped year to year, but we're actually on an upward arc. It's also, to me, we are always going to expect to see anomalies in any kind of evaluative data. You don't have everything going up on a lovely linear path that matches what you projected, especially in a period of time like this.
Especially when you've got Diana writing your goals.
And in a time like this where the level of impossible to anticipate disruption has been through the roof, and then some. There are also some places, though, where we're seeing that our midterm numbers are actually above some of those incredible goals that were set. And I hope that we're going to be able to leverage and raise our goals and say, you bet we're hanging on to every bit of this gain, and we're gonna up our game because the opportunity is there to do even more. So I was to me, this is such a great presentation about the work we're all doing and the fact that it's really going well in a huge range of areas. So thank you for that.
Chris?
I'll second the well done on the report, particularly the decision, I think. One of the things Bonnie introduced to us in the report over the years, it's been kind of well, it came to known in your terms as the grows and the flows.
Yes.
Which I think is always very helpful. And I was wondering whether in the various metrics you showed us, was there one that kind of jumped out to you that said, wow, we're doing better than I expected? And another that said, we're going to have to work really hard to get there. A lot of them had these 10% growth targets.
Yeah.
In 2024, which looks like but I'd be interested in your observations. Maybe one of these.
I was heartened by the growth in UCA through G for our African American, Latino, and Pacific Islander students between 2019 and now. And then I was discouraged by our EL results. And I think that Diana's really hit on something, which is the intersection of our kids who are dual designated EL and SPED. And some suggestions she had on, if we drill down on that data, what might we learn about some education we need to do for ourselves on how to best teach those kids. Vicky Dye and her team have been doing an in-depth study on our reading program to say, hey, look at what we found when we looked at algebra readiness. Are we addressing what we mean to address with our English support classes? And so it'll be interesting when they bring that report later this spring to you guys, because again, we're seeing that intersectionality of a large number of students with a dual designation. So I think that that is a real area of growth for us.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much for all your work. Appreciate it. Okay, next item is 12.2 EPAA.
Good evening, trustees, Dr. Williams and cabinet. Amika Guillaume, proud principal of EPAA. I will do a very similar, I'm so muffled. Let me eliminate one of my layers. How's that? All right, that worked. Okay.
Thank you, Shani.
It's the Bay Area. You got to be layered, especially during a pandemic. Okay. Mercy. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I will try to do a good job in following in Bonnie's footsteps, which she always sets such a high bar. I get nervous. Okay. Ooh, here we are on Zoom. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm actually starting with the supplement to the annual update, which has all the money stuff, and then I'll walk us through the LCAP mid-year progress. You should have a copy of our LCAP mid-year progress from DTS, only because the way I formatted my slides are more high level. And so if you want to look through the details, I have that for you as those attachments. So just giving you a heads up. First of all, I cannot start anything without giving mad props to our team, some of whom are in here this evening, and then my colleagues at EPA, the students and families, because so much of this is all about the conversations we've had, asking ourselves tough questions about what do we need, what do our students need, and what we can do better. So teamwork was the name of the game. We can't do anything without all of these good people. So these are some photos of the students in our sports programs this last season. So first of all, we had an influx of funds that were not in our first LCAP that you saw for 21-22. So that's what we'll be talking about, are some of these increases, and that's what we're fulfilling this requirement per Assembly Bill 130. As you can see, we started off with 4 million and we are ending with 6.3 million, with the caveat that two things. EPA is ADA funded. So what we have to do is we have to acknowledge our attendance and how that impacts the budget. And there was a dramatic decrease for our freshman class this year because we were hit hard by the pandemic and how it impacted attendance, both attendance day to day and also for enrollment. So for example, this year, thank you, Jarrett, we had our first lottery because we had over 130 students apply to EPAA, which is very sad when you imagine last year how very few freshmen came to EPAA. So now we have this imbalance in our enrollment, which is therefore an imbalance in our budget. And the other thing is the day-to-day attendance. So it's not just your enrollment, but it's, are they coming to school every day? Now, what we did is we built out our budget with the assumption that we are going to have the funds that can have the 3% reserve and also absorb any additional costs and expenses for benefits. And then of course, the good cost for the good work that we all do. So what I want to say is that this additional funding does not mean, woo, it's a party EPA and we're going to do all this great stuff. It means we're able to maintain the level of programs and the level of staffing because our program is already very robust, specifically for those unduplicated students. So we have all the 5 prompts that were given by the state that we'll walk through. The first is about our engagement. Again, what we did is we fully engaged folks in a number of different ways, which I listed here in detail. And in those areas, we noted a few things. We want to maintain the level of mental health supports. We want to maintain the student access to credit recovery, to IA support, all of these things. And so what we did is we did not add more things. We are just able to maintain these things and stretch it, especially with the ESSER 3, to the 2024 deadline, because those funds are good through September, I believe September 2024. So we didn't add many things, we just maintain, and we're able to hang on to these good people throughout. The other piece is this additional funding. So we have 86% of our students are considered the unduplicated pupil enrollment for the 2020-21 school year, and that's how they got the 15% concentration grant. And so again, as I mentioned, it's expanding those contracts of the additional staff, the newcomer student IA, the struggling math student IA, this beautiful new position, IA for SSTs, 504s, and extended absences. That has been amazing. And then of course, supporting the salaries of those folks who do some of the most important work, such as our, my goodness, Marco Calderon, our manager of social services. In addition to that, we also have the COVID emergency relief funds and the ELOG. And what I want to point out is that we also had to do a lot of professional development, and we also had to make sure that students had access to summer programming because of that incredible credit deficiency issue that we're still trying to make up for. And then, of course, instructional materials and staff support. So thanks to all of these funds, we're able to maintain that. The other piece is that we have this one-time funds, the federal funds. And so again, we did not try to do new stuff. We tried to dig deep and make sure we could afford this throughout, because otherwise our budget fluctuates too much. And so we're able to keep it steady thanks to these funds, which I know has been a long ongoing challenge for EPAA. So specifically with the ESSER 3, we're looking at, again, the increasing the number of the paraprofessionals who I just shared with you. Of course, we have to provide all that PPE so that the kids can safely come to school and feel safe. And then the question is, well, what was the challenges for us? As we know, the challenges really were at this time that the Omicron variant was hitting us, affecting the attendance, which is so, it's been so challenging because right as we felt like we were hitting a stride with the students, they're coming to school and they're getting to hear about, oh, we're going to college, y'all, we're going to college, because that was the piece we missed for a year and a half. We didn't push the college going curriculum because we were stressing them out. And so we have sophomores and juniors right now who are acting like they've never heard about we're going to college because they didn't realize we have scholarships. They didn't realize that the advisory program is about college and career readiness, because we turned the focus so much on SEL and well-being and meditation and all this, like, stay centered, stay, present, that we are now seeing the error of those ways, because it was hard, right? They were saying, don't talk to us about that, it's too stressful. And now, why are you talking to us about that? Is that a thing? Why, yes, it is a thing. So that's been a real challenge for us. So the Omicron not only impacted the flow that we were getting towards, but it's the day-to-day attendance. So that's been a big challenge. So in general, the successes, of course, is that everyone feels safe. As you know, we have an overabundance of masks and all of the PPE that we need. We've had awesome professional development to get us centered and back on track. And we continue to have, as much as we can, physically hire our own teachers to do summer school and to do summer bridge for all of those credit recovery opportunities. We are so thrilled to have not one, not two, but 3 staff who work overtime to be able to help with this expanded school tutoring, because it's all about those relationships, right? It's one thing to say, go see the tutors. It's another thing to say, you, I will see you after school. And then when they start going off in the wrong direction, wait, come back. So it really is about triangulating and herding them into the library. So that's something that we've seen that's been a huge help. And then expanded parent education, we've been able to do an ed series in addition to the workshops we do for SEL support. We've added an ed series to all of our SSC ELAC meetings. So tomorrow, if you want to talk about teens and screen time, that's a component of our SSC ELAC tomorrow. And the challenges, of course, as I mentioned, the attendance, making sure they do stay after school for these programs. The other piece is that a lot of programs have moved to Zoom and keeping them engaged, which has worked well for our intervention classes, but not so much after school. And then the saddest for me, because I do love my parent meetings, but the attendance of the parent meetings has gone down quite dramatically, which is very sad. So I got to figure that out because I do miss them. So we usually would have 30 between the AM and the PM. And this last couple of months, I've only had 15, which feels so different. And like I said, those are one of my favorite meetings. So now we're moving on to the LCAP, which we all know what the good use of the LCAP. We have 5 goals. The first is highly effective teachers. That is not just in the hiring of a staff that is diverse and reflects our students, but also those who are professionally developed and ready to rock and roll. Number 2 has to do with that important work. Okay, you got good teachers. Now, can they actually have the students learning at a high level? That's goal 2. Goal 3 is very specific to a large population we have of ELLs and making sure that they have the success rates that show that we are bridging that gap between our ELLs, our RFEP, IFEP, and then our English only students. And then, of course, goal 4 is what I talked about earlier about the community engagement. And then goal 5, this is the one actually where we've seen the most, ironically, this is the one on the mid-year report you see where we're super on track. I'm very proud of the progress we're making on goal 5. So here we go. We're in the middle of the academic year. This is the impact on the budget. that we are obliged to share, as known as the parent POB, is it parent adopted budget? I can't remember the acronym. But thank you to Dina that we have this all out there for the folks. So goal 1, rigorous supportive equity-driven program, all about those teachers I mentioned earlier. I've been very, very lucky is that our staff remains diverse, our staff remains fully qualified, and we have an incredible team. So as I always say, always welcome to come. If you want to be inspired, come visit an EPA classroom. Okay, annual progress. This one's been a little bit trickier. I know Diane and I were trying to figure out comparing the ICA data, because something Bonnie was mentioning too, is that when you're comparing the last 2 years to this year, it's been tricky. One of the things we noticed is that last year it was on the Wednesday that they took the ICA. And so we were thinking, what wonderful kids on their own took the ICA on a Wednesday. And now we're comparing it to all these kids that we dragged into the NPR, take the ICA. So that's one data set that we're interested in seeing. Yeah, asynchronously too. Yeah, so that was lovely. So we got to figure out how we can really do apples to apples data comparison. So I'm looking forward to the SBAC that's coming up. We also started to do Lexile every quarter. So we're doing the SRI for reading levels every quarter because we want to be able to measure that. So those are important additions that we're going to do. Like Bonnie was mentioning, it just feels like because we have such a lapse in available data, we need to do our own data. So we're going to add some new data to the revised LCAP at the end of the year because this isn't enough. And that's the funding up to date. So for goal 3, this has to do with our English language learners. Again, a lot of the data isn't available to the end of the year, so that's why it's all in progress, the funding that we've spent to date. Goal 4 around community engagement. 4 of the metrics are on track, especially around parent involvement in the meetings that we do, the SLC meetings. In the IEP meetings, we've exceeded our goal in terms of having parent representation. But then again, there are still those 3 metrics that are negatively impacted by the Omicron, which has been very frustrating. And then last but not least, this one is the one that I'm super proud of, goal number 5. If you look at the mid-year report, we have, the goal was initially to have, where am I? Oh, the cohort graduation rate. No, that's TDA. Where is this one? Oh, here we go. The number of students who are A through G completion, as of the last quarter grade, 63% of our students have a 2.0 or above in their A through G coursework. So that is something we're excited about. So we're on track with that. And the other one is the number of juniors who are dual enrolled in a CTE pathway. And so our goal at this point was 15% as our baseline, and we're at 20%. So 20% of our juniors and seniors are enrolled in either the CTE pathway foothill course that we have, or the other 2 foothill courses we offer on campus. So we're excited that they're taking advantage of that. So in conclusion, the pandemic continues to have those challenges. We're really lucky that so many of our teachers have been in the classroom subbing, so we're trying not to miss a beat. We're so lucky that we have Canvas, and we have Pear Deck, and we have Nearpod. So even though we do have on average 3 to 5, well, I should say 20% of our teachers absent almost daily in these last several months, the classrooms still have teachers, certificated teachers in them. So we've been really lucky. And thank you again for making the raise for the subs, because it made a difference. I noticed that we had 3 folks that we'd never had before coming to sub, and we treated them like kings and queens. I even have coffee for them because they need to come back. So and we have the teachers email them personally and tell them, thank you so much. You're going to love our students. And so it's been lovely meeting them and treating them like kings and queens, because learning must continue and Miss Guillaume's tired of subbing. So it made doing the LCAP a little tricky. So so thank you everyone for all of your support. And as you know, once a bulldog, always a bulldog.
Thank you so much.
Any questions? Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you for your report. And I get to see your students at different events like the Boys and Girls Youth of the Year. Many of our schools were represented there, but I wanted to acknowledge that. I do have a question. I want to make a comment about community. Am I not, hello. All right. About the engagement piece, that's not unusual that we're seeing that across East Palo Alto. Yes, you know, I work in East Palo Alto. So what I'm learning is that families have gotten busy trying to, because of a lot of the protective factors there around rent, around food, those things are starting to go away. So people are having to work double time to make up what it is that they've lost. And so they're still trying to reorganize their lives. I just want to put that out there. So it's not unusual.
Thank you.
And so I wanted to share that with you. It's not your imagination. It's happening in quite a few places if families have to work 2 and 3 jobs to make it, or their bosses are asking them to come back. The other thing is, are you, other than attendance, how are you measuring community engagement for yourself?
So we have, let me see, which goal is that one? We have, so there's different layers of it. There's the SLC meeting. So that's one of our measures, is a student-led conference. And that one should be quite successful because it's the individual advisor who's had that child, well, supposed to have that child for 2 years. So if their first year might be a little trickier, but they've had them for 2 years if they're in the second circuit. And so that's a personal phone call from your child's teacher. So that's one, is how many SLC meetings. The other is how many IEP meetings have the parent present. The other is, of course, the attendance, and then the monthly meetings we do. And we do 2. We always do one in the morning, and we do the same meeting in the evening because of the parents who work multiple jobs. So those are the main ways that we measure the engagement.
Basically that they show up to the meeting. Do you measure the quality of their experience?
That's a good question, because that comes out of the Panorama survey.
Okay.
Which I say knowing I need to get more parents to fill out that survey. That's probably the most consistent way that we measure their actual quality of involvement, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I did notice there's a community hand up. So is it okay if there's a community member has hand up? Oh, so no, I did call on you. Oh, okay. You don't need to apologize. So Marie Andre Roy, did you have a comment on this agenda item? Maybe not. That could be an accidental hand raised. I think. Yeah. Yeah, I think, did you want to address the board? I think that's an accident. So I'll just move on to board members. Any other comments?
She's unmuted now.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll go back to her.
Oh, she's down.
I don't think, I think it was accidental. Alan?
So certainly I want to start with all the same things I said to Bonnie, that this is great work and hard work. And it's not only hard work pulling the report together, but it represents more effectively than almost any other way we look at things, the hard work that goes on across our district and at our sites to really deliver the quality instruction and meet the circumstances that we're under. There were 2 things I think that were thematically embedded throughout your presentation that really struck me. One is that we're not tracing the arc of business as usual and looking at how have things been, and how do we want to continue or improve the arc of student outcomes. We're looking at a period of immense disruption where student experiences, family experiences, community, staff experiences have gone off the rails. And in many regards, we're in survival mode, we're in recovery mode. We're looking at how do we fill in some of these gaps that have occurred in student experiences. And that's really kind of the background against which all of this measurement is being done. Then the second thing is the funding side of it, that what we've really been getting in the way of federal and state funding toward pandemic relief is gigantic shovelfuls. Here's a bunch of money, go off and do something great with it. Here's another bunch of money, go off and do something great with it. And what we're looking at is that we have long-term work that we need to do that with that recovery, that's really the basis of so much that's going on. It's not only making sure that we keep in place the things that have worked so well and we're so challenged to maintain, but how do we go about building up the additional supports that are appropriate for the current state we're in and so many of our students are in, and lay it out in a long-term support manner. So we're taking these giant shovelfuls and we're distributing it very carefully in spoonfuls over a long period of time. And that was something I also saw reflected there. And I know that's a big part of the work that we're doing now.
Allowing us to maintain a level of consistency in staffing is important. I think also for morale for the team to know that this is just a one and done. This is something that we're committed to over time. I think helps the team feel a sense of security and investment in the work. Certainly. Okay, good evening. Thank you, everyone.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We are now on item 14.1, discussion on board self-evaluation. And I believe I'm turning this over to our colleague, Trustee Stevenson.
Okay, can you all hear me? Can y'all hear me now? Okay. All right. Someone's gonna put up the PowerPoint, right? Do I put it up? Okay. Thank you all. We're gonna talk a little bit about board self-evaluation today. I'm one of those people that do my homework, and I'm excited to talk about this. I know I've been talking, I think that we need a board self-evaluation. We've been together, let me change that. I've been with y'all for a year. And I think we've gotten used to each other. And it's not something we would have done at the beginning of our new board, but now that we're in motion, I do think that a board self-evaluation has been one of the things that I've been talking about, and I'm so excited and honored to talk about this today. So as we talk about the board self-evaluation, of course, I went to a CSBA conference. It solidified everything for me. I was so excited. And so I'm going to use a little bit of their information and some of the research that I've done about this. So I'm going to read the first quote. Often the best judge of what works in governance and what needs improvement are the governance team themselves. And that comes from the Governance Core book that we get when we go to CSBA. Next slide. And so why would we conduct a self-board evaluation? Took this straight from our board policy, so I didn't make this up, y'all. Demonstrate accountability to the community, ensure that the district governance effectively supports student achievement, our most important reason why we're all here, and the attainment of the district's vision and goals. And this actually comes from our board policy that was developed in 2019, I believe. Next one. So what is the board's self-evaluation process? And I took this from the governance handbook. Can you click? Thank you. There's two parts to it. Part one is a written appraisal. Written appraisal distributed to board members 2 weeks prior to the decided upon date. And each board member completes the written appraisal independently. The district confidential staff will compile the individual responses into a summary report. And the board will review summary report as an information item on a subsequent open meeting. Click one more time. One more. Thank you. Part two, there would be a facilitated work session where a superintendent will work with the board president to develop a proposal related to the agenda and an external facilitator. This proposal shall be discussed and revised as necessary and approved by the board as a whole in open session. A date and time is established during that time. The board shall review summary reports provided by the facilitators following the work session as an information item on subsequent public meetings. So click. Thank you so much. So after really thinking about this and looking at our own policy, what we said we would do, we would conduct a CSBA school district governance team self-evaluation as is electronic and individual responses are confidential. The CSBA has a process where they also can facilitate the meeting in line with our governance handbook self-evaluation process. The reason why I say go to an electronic copy versus a written copy is that our district, according to our research, does not have a written appraisal form on file. The second one is written is no longer efficient. So CSBA provides a login to conduct it online. There's individual responses are confidential and shows a measure of our collective responses. The board receive an automatic summary, which saves us time. CSBA would provide facilitation. If not them, we could use someone else that would allow us to have an individual and collective reflections, update our governance handbook as needed, and strengthen our communication amongst each other to support student achievement and strengthen our relationship and support to our superintendent. Next one. So CSBA school district's governance team self-evaluation has two parts to it. The first one is the condition of effective governance, which is unity, governance team roles and responsibilities, governance team culture, governance team operations, board meetings, and governance leadership development. Part two, the board responsibilities as stated, setting directions, establishing the structure, creating a supportive environment, ensuring accountability, and demonstrating community leadership. For each statement, the individuals, the board members, should select the descriptor that most accurately describe to the extent to which the board demonstrates the quality of these characteristics or characteristics. So this is what it looks like. I can't quite read that far, but that's what the report looks like. It's color coded. You're able to kind of see what it is and how you evaluate. So I can't read it that close. I'm sorry, you all. And it does cost. The actual evaluation is around $200, but the facilitation is around $2,400 to $3,700 if we do it over 1 day or 2 days. And so I'm excited about this board evaluation because I think it's time we have one to better our communication and work with each other. I do think we are a great board. I feel like I know each and every one of you better than I did the first day. But I want to be better. And I want us to be better, not just for ourselves, for ourselves individually, but us as a collective, but most importantly for the students that we serve. Because the more the adults are on the same page, the better our students will be. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think I will go ahead and start. First of all, thank you for going through Masters in Governance. Thank you for having passion for all this stuff. It's just great to see. I did want to say, and I know I said this to you, but now I'm talking to because of Brown Act, the people I didn't talk to. So we did do board self-evaluation as part of this board, right? So we did have a form.
2018 was the last, 2018 was the last one recorded.
Seemed like it was part of our superintendent's evaluation. Was it that long ago?
It was 2018. That's what's on record.
So I think the reason we dropped it, this is just my opinion, and that's why I'm really interested in the thoughts of my colleagues. I didn't find it to be transformative. I think we did transform as a board, and maybe people who've been watching us for a long time would see that there's really been a difference in the way the governance team has operated. We always still have room for improvement, but I didn't find the board self-evaluation to be truly transformative. It could be different this time, right? If we do it a different way. So I'm certainly open to that. And the reason I didn't find it transformative, if you have, and I'm thinking of other boards right now, occasionally there are really wayward board members. And I don't think the self-evaluation process actually corrects negative behavior.
Yeah, I can hear what you're saying. And everyone gets an evaluation in this district. Everyone.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to bring back.
So for me as leaders, if I'm going to ask the teachers to be evaluated, if I'm going to ask our facility staff and our operations staff and our clinicals and our social workers and our superintendent to be evaluated, we should be doing a self-evaluation. And I think that it's not helpful if we don't take it seriously.
But
So
can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Before you go on? But for the board, it works differently. We are evaluating ourselves.
Exactly.
Right? So that's not, so in other parts of our organization, they're not doing self-evaluations. Somebody else is evaluating, correct?
I can't tell you what their
Yeah.
evaluation process is. Maybe someone can tell us what that looks like. But I think there is a place for self-reflection. And I do know, I work with teachers, they self-reflect all the time. What can I do? How can, something happen? Let me reflect. As social workers and the work that I do, we do self-reflection all the time. We actually reflect after every meeting and so. And even in my own coaching, I reflect with the people that I'm coaching to say, did this meet your needs, right? It doesn't work if you don't take it seriously. It may not be we're all gonna, change 360 degrees. But if it is, you go into it with authenticity and honesty and with the goal of growing, it can change you. It doesn't have to be a checklist. And I just believe, just like coming to this meeting with my mask on, is set an example for our students that we are behind them, that they have to wear their mask. I'm asking them to be evaluated. They have to be evaluated because of how testing goes. Our teachers need to do it in order to say whether or not they're teaching well or not, or they need to shift. Whether our bus drivers, whomever, our superintendent, to me, that's leadership.
No, I mean, I advocated for it before, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to bring back what we did before. I'm really curious what you guys thought, and I don't remember why we dropped it. I was happy to do it every year as part of, I don't know if I want to spend another $2,300 on yet another consultant, but you guys have thoughts on how we, how it was used before?
I think our board has long talked a pretty good game about self-evaluation, but has had a hard time ending up holding our own feet to the fire. I think there have been a lot of kind of false starts to try and get it going, a lot of conversation that has led to sometimes unanimous or sometimes majority sense of we really should be doing this. And then certainly speaking as immediate past president, I know I didn't push it forward at a level that matched, board willingness to commit. And I think a real big part of it has been that reality and challenge has been getting in our way, and we've been quite willing to say, can we take time out for how we get students back in the classroom to go into a high meta level board self-evaluation? But I've long agreed with the arguments that Shanice is talking about, is that if continuous improvement is truly the mantra that we want at every level of the organization, we have to model it and embrace it at the board level to really, walk the walk as well as talking.
And what we used before, I mean, I think I took it seriously. Are you saying that the form wasn't right? Why did it not work? I'm not really clear on that.
I don't know so much that I have a sense of it was a good or bad experience. I think it was something that happened quite a while ago and has been essentially put in a corner and gotten stale, and does not reflect the fact that the composition of this board is very different than the group of people who did it the last time around. I think there is professional building that this team should be doing.
I sort of play off of Alan's comments, but the bottom line for me is I want to be deferential to our new colleagues on the board. because we've gone through these things before. I think it's been a mixed record. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not, but it's probably the group makeup that's more important. So to that extent, I think we know where Shawnice is, but I'm keenly interested in Rich's comments.
I'll say that we have various retreat topics and things that we want to bring in consultants and spend a day or two on. And I think we need to look at all of them and decide which ones we're going to do, if we're going to do all of them or we're going to do some of them. So I think it's a good thing, and I think it's great. And there's other things that we've talked about doing that involve bringing consultants in for a day or two that I think were good and would sound great. And so we just have to decide how many of them we're going to, which ones we're going to do. And I don't know that the right way to decide that, but I think all the things we've talked about doing sound good, and there may be more of them than there is time to do them.
Can I propose something? If I've heard that we put it on the shelf for various reasons, there's been the last at least 2 years, there's been an emergency. So that's 2020, but it hasn't happened since 2018. If you said you were part of an employee and they said, I can't just do my evaluation for another couple of years, would that be satisfying to anyone?
My definition of evaluation is different. It's not me evaluating myself. And that's why I love the idea of the 360, because when we practiced and did the pilot of the 360, I felt that there was feedback on the board's work that came from the community.
And
the community is my boss.
Yeah,
right?
so that's a different process, right?
But that's the only time I've gotten really good
let me
feedback,
finish.
right? As a
So
board
if
member.
it is, our policy says that we do one every year and we neglect to do it, but we say that's our accountability to our community because it's done in a public session, which we could say, hey, community, have a community conversation with how we're doing.
Yeah.
Give us feedback. Then you then add on to this community piece. But if it is, you don't even do it and no one can give feedback. And so we only get emails that we can't really have a conversation with our community and ourselves. To me, that doesn't feel like community leadership. And so for me, I go into it just like you, seriously, Carrie, and I know it could go sideways, but in my private life, on my job, my evaluation can go sideways. But I still lean in and do my evaluation and I have a conversation and it's not, do I do this or do this? This is a part of the job of being a community leader is evaluation. I work for Head Start. We do community evaluations, called a community assessment, community conversations, the board, the parents give us feedback. There's a process. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily as explicit in the public education system. That's why we have the LCAP. That's why but those really are just about academic and school site. But we as a board continues to need to do our own evaluation. And I just want to go back to those intense days of the COVID and the many of emails that we got the day after telling us, do y'all remember these? I do. I can go back and print them out. But they gave us critique on how to be governance, make decisions, leadership. Some people even talked about how we answered questions or didn't answer them. And my thing is, why should I have to wait for someone else to give me input for the input that we can give ourselves and we can go into this being honest? To me, it doesn't need to be long. If we are doing what we need to do and we just do a 4-hour and then we add something else to it. But the thing that attracted me about this is that it could influence how we do our governance handbook. It could change something that's old and antiquated. Did I say that right, Bonnie? Okay. So to me, this is an investment in us and an investment in our community. And I'm trying not to go off because, I want y'all to have y'all room to think. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. I know money may feel like it's an issue, but it's our professional development as well. It's our communication. And I actually saw another district use their governance handbook and their report to really be better and to really have a really great retreat, around communication, making decisions, those kinds of things. And to be honest, it takes us a while to make some decisions, 2, 3, 4 times to make a decision. And I think having this as a neutral document, so we don't know each other's answers, so I don't have to challenge you and I don't have to explain that to me. It's just data. And it could actually facilitate more of a communication. When I talked to CSBA, when I talked to Lorraine, I think, how do you say her name?
Rivera.
Rivera, thank you. She actually said we could actually do this because we've been together almost 2 years. But then if we do have new board members in 2024, I believe it is, that's when you do a new beginnings workshop to really solidify and not do an evaluation.
Yeah, and we've never done the new beginnings. I think that would be really
yeah,
useful.
so I just want to put that out there. I'm going to try to back off. I'm a little advocate and I'm really advocating really strong for this because I do think we need it.
Okay, so you do feel strongly about this?
I sure do.
I'm sorry, I'm the opposite end, that I didn't find it transformative, but I'm willing to do it again because you feel strongly. But I do agree that we should probably think about all of the things that we put on our plate and the consultants that we're considering right now, because we need to be prudent with taxpayers' money. And it really needs to be, I think we need to consider all of the things that we're trying to work on right now as a governance team and the various consultants that we are working with in the district, because we need to be prudent with taxpayer money as well. So how do you guys propose deciding on what we are going to do? Are we going to do everything? And how do we decide?
The mechanism we've used for that is the time where we talk about the governance calendar. And
I'm sorry, I can't understand.
I only have one mask, so I can't. And as a teacher pointed out before, it has a message I like sharing. So can you? Dream Club. We have the time at the end of the meeting where we look at the governance calendar, and I think Rich is right that we do a better job when we look at things together to prioritize rather than do them in isolation. I wonder whether we couldn't look the next meeting or the meeting after that at the retreats we have, and at that time in the meeting prioritize those and schedule them. Because I didn't hear an urgent, you want to do that this year, I think is what
I do.
which
do.
I appreciate, but
I do. I think we've been together long enough and we're not tap dancing with each other anymore because we're new to each other. I think we're getting used to each other. And I think that's when the time when you're growing and storming and moving together as a group, friction happens. Not necessarily, we ain't catfighting behind the doors, nothing like that. But we are just learning to be together, right? And so this is the time you take a mid-break and say, okay, let's reflect. And that's why I said, I don't want to kick it down the can 2 more years or even a year, because then we'll say it's another reason why we can't do it. So then again, you don't hold ourselves accountable to the community. And it's already been 4 years.
I think, I was a very big advocate when Shanice and Rich first walked in the door to really encourage Shanice to take the master's in governance as soon as possible. And Dr. Williams signed up for the entire master's of governance with Shanice to go through that together. And so I joined in as well, although it had been, I had done it way back in my first year. And one of the things that happened throughout many of our classes together was that Shanice was all over the chat to me throughout the course of many of the classes, and talking about, oh, this is a really important idea. I had no idea we had this responsibility, or I had no idea there were tools or approaches or ways to do this. And one of the areas that was strongest in her reaction and advocacy was the board self-evaluation. and how important that was. And she kept coming to me with one question over and over again. Does our board do this? How does our board do this? And this was one of the areas where my answer typically was along the lines of, we've kind of approached it on occasion in the past, but it's not a real part of our culture. And I think
tried.
that,
I tried.
yeah. So I guess to
Oh,
me,
brother.
I agree with her that it's time for it to be part of our culture. I'd like us to look at it in the context of the large range of things on it, on the board calendar that we've taken on, and say, okay, where could we think about fitting it in? And I think it's worthwhile.
Thank you, Ellen. I think the piece that stood out, the two pieces was this board evaluation, but the community leadership piece. As a person who's a community-based social worker, relationships with our community is really important. And I was listening to our parent education series on money talks, and how to talk to your kids about money and how to handle money. Anyhow, that's a whole nother subject. But anyhow, but one thing that came out of there is that she said that we live in right now in our generation, they did some type of research that some countries rebounded from COVID because they trust their country. She said, but the United States, we struggled with bouncing back because we're a divided country that don't trust. So then my question is, how do you build trust? By demonstrating and taking the risk to build trust. And that's evaluation. That's leaning in when people are yelling at you and saying, let me hear you more. What's validity in this? How do I help you? Where do I move? Where do I adjust? Is being responsive, respond to people in 24 to 72 hours. It is standing flat foot, as my family would say, and say who we are, who we value, who we are and our values, and living those out every day. And if we value this is building trust with our community. This is, they may come mad, maybe we only have us in the room and it'd be crickets, who knows? But we've given the opportunity and said, we're taking the leadership to build trust with our community. We're going to go against the grain and not be okay with not having opportunity for our community to also give us feedback. And Carrie, I do think that's the 360 for our community. If we did this, could we advertise and get this room and Zoom packed very safely, Dr. Williams, very safely, with everybody tested on the way in, that it's a community conversation.
Well, if we do something like that, I'm more excited. Then it's a real evaluation. I mean, I do feel like I do.
So there's a way to do it,
that,
Carrie,
but
to
yeah.
get to where you want to
Yeah.
go. The question is, can we be open to a different way instead of saying we can't do it? How can we use it to build trust with our community, and what components we can do? And I would love to do a community campaign to come in here and give us feedback. But I also want room for us to give each other feedback. And it doesn't have to be a retreat. It could be, a public meeting.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, let me do a wrap up, make sure I understand.
Thank
So we're
you.
going to wait until we're looking at the governance calendar, right?
Are we going to come back next time to discuss it and look at the governance calendar? Next meeting?
You want to do it next meeting? And then do we need to look at what we're paying for consultants and maybe drop one consultant off if we're going to bring another consultant on? Or is that not important?
Two issues, there's the money, but there's also just the time and how many outside of the regular meeting special study sessions are we going to do?
So we should talk about everything, the whole,
All the different study sessions that we've considered.
as well as cost?
And facilitation can be different, you all. I mean, we can design it the way we want. We do need a facilitator just to facilitate the conversation if we
Mhm.
have people here. But it doesn't have to be, in my mind, maybe I'm naive. I don't think it'll need to take 8 hours to do. I do think we need to give ourselves 2 hours at the least, or 4 or 3, right? So I don't know. I mean, we can figure it out together, the facilitation piece of it, but
No, it's talking about the cost.
Oh, the cost.
The cost.
Well-
Do we want to look at the cost and do we want to possibly drop off another consultant for bringing somebody on?
I personally think it's our professional development and it is, if we invest in our community, $2,700 is nothing to get community input. That's nothing. That means money is also valuable. I'm gonna put money into you being able to give us feedback. And we do it in a way where the community shows up, fine. But I'm not gonna talk about money when we spend money on so many other things, except for when it comes to community, we wanna like cut that out, right? So no, if community is important, they'll show up for us.
Okay. All right, so we're all clear? Very good. Okay.
So what's the
Do we need to
direction?
repeat it?
Yeah.
Next, this is why it's hard to be board president. Have to make sure we're all clear as we give clear direction. I think at the next meeting, we want to look at the governance calendar. And Shanice would like us to schedule this retreat with Luann Rivera.
Well, I think we'll look at all of the different retreats that we're considering and try to put them on account, like see where we're going to put them.
Okay.
Because we've talked about other retreats in the past as well.
I heard something different. I heard that we will talk
This
about.
is why it's so important to wrap it
That we
up.
would talk about at the next meeting, look at the governance calendar and schedule it. Is that what I'm hearing? Not see if, but schedule it. What did I hear? That's why I'm asking.
That's kind of what I repeated back.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I heard you say.
Although what I heard was different
We're
than
just gonna go
that,
ahead.
which
Okay.
was we look at the number of retreats that we're considering, we prioritize those and make choices in that context.
So look at all the retreats, prioritize them, and then schedule them.
Yep.
Okay. Everybody,
But this one will be on there next week to be able to talk about and where to prioritize it, correct? Or are we saying
need
talk
three
about it
board-
all
I
next
think I need
time?
3 board members to say yes to that.
I'm trying to get clarity on what we're saying.
I think what I've heard just pass around here now is that we want to include this in our list of retreats and consultancy opportunities that we're looking at. We want to look at that at the nearest possible opportunity. So if we can do that, if we can be prepared to do that in depth at the next board meeting, that'd be great. And come out of that discussion with the prioritization, recognizing that there's a lot of interest in this being a priority activity,
So look at the list.
but
Look at
not
the
a
list.
decision about where our prioritization is going to land when we do actually do it.
With the decision of where our priorities land. Once we look at the list. At the next
Yeah,
meeting.
I mean, we may, if we get the complete list, we may say, oh man, there's 6 or 7 really hot items that we've had floating out in left field.
And should we get a review of the cost of all of this? Sure. I think so. I think that's community transparency.
Carrie, can you repeat that, please?
I think we also need an update. Is that okay, Dr. Williams? To also get a review of the cost of consultants.
So what's the direction? Because I don't, do we take a vote? What do we say? I
don't think we're taking a vote. We're giving direction to the superintendent. So what we said is that at the next meeting, we're going to review all of the things that all of the retreat ideas we have. And then I just suggested that we also do a review of the cost
Of the
for
cost.
consultants. And then at the next meeting, we will make a decision. We'll prioritize what we're going to do, and we'll plug all this into our schedules.
Okay.
Everybody good?
At the next meeting.
So that I'm clear. So we're going to review the governance calendar at the next meeting, and we're going to, as part of that review, we're going to identify the retreats that are of necessity with the cost to make the determination.
Yeah. And then prioritize. Right. Okay, thank you
You're welcome.
for your advocacy.
Yes.
And your passion
Thank you.
and your desire to make us better. Okay.
So we are now on 15, action item, the approval of the tentative agreement. I do have a speaker card from Edith. You want to go ahead?
Do we want to have the presentation first and then the speakers?
I was thinking speaker first. Is that okay? What do you prefer? Okay.
Together.
I mean, if Edith starts off by telling us that she thinks the whole thing is a big pile and we think it's a terrible idea, then it kind of would wreck Todd's presentation.
It was actually a good opportunity for us as a district to work with Sdta in negotiations. I was not part of it for this year as it came down my late arrival within our district. But following up on it and seeing how this all worked out, it looks like it was a positive collaboration with Sdta, with Edith and her group. And with that, we're bringing to the board an action item to approve the negotiated agreement or tentative agreement between the district and Sdta, which, as you see in front of you, there's a lot of positives that go into this. I could read a good part of it, only because I think some of the major key areas that we were able to come apart, and we want to thank the board too for your diligence in guiding the district and working with the Sdta as we got through this process. So just a couple key items for this school year as part of the tentative agreement is that the collective bargaining units will receive a 2.5% salary increase retroactive July 1, 2021. The next section on here is that for the 2022-2023 school year, the collective bargaining units will receive a 2.5% salary increase effective July 1, 2022. We also looked at it effective July 1, 2023, a salary increase of 2% effective January 1, 2023. So it's again, a fantastic opportunity for the members in our community, members in our teaching associations. They do work hard. We know it's been definitely a frustrating year, difficult year as we battle through the COVID pandemic and the work they've done with our students. And so they've done a fantastic job. And so we do, again, thank you for the board and thank you for the collaboration with Sdta.
Thank you.
All right. And I wanted to say this has been a unique round of bargaining for us. It was complicated at the beginning, obviously, by COVID. We got a late start in bargaining. We had new folks on both sides, new superintendent, new folks in district cabinet. Our team was, half of our team was new to the bargaining process, as well as we've been working really hard on inclusivity and our bargaining process and representation. And so it was new. We were learning a lot. We had the whole contract open. We had a lot of things to talk about. And ultimately, I think we made a lot of good improvements. We had a lot of talk, a lot of shared values around maintaining our benefits for our employees while helping to contain costs for the district, recognizing the work that our employees do for the district, looking at ways that we can make some of those jobs more sustainable in the long run, and also looking at ways that we can create time for ongoing unified professional development, which is one of the superintendent's goals. And so I think beyond the numbers that were just mentioned, there are a lot of really good improvements in the agreement this time. And since we don't have a whole lot of people here, I'm not bribing anybody, but I do have some festive beverages that I brought that we might be able to share if there's a break in a little while.
If
So
there's a
thank
break.
you all very much. And the numeric part of my report is that it was ratified by our membership with 98% of the vote. Oh, above 98% of the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. So any board comments or questions? Or did I just have a
Kudos to the
motion?
negotiating team for an agreement that sounds like really works well for everybody. I think it's nice for this board to feel like the teachers feel good, they're being recognized and rewarded and feel good about the contract. Thank you for sharing the 98% with us, Edith. So, other than that, go.
Can I say
Have a
something?
motion?
Can I say something?
Oh, yes.
I just want to say thank you to our teachers. I'm just, the more and more I hang out with some great teachers as my daughter moved towards graduation, because I'll be an empty nester, thank the Lord. The teachers were there along the way. And so I'm happy that we're able to come to a resolution.
I just wanted to take the time to extend appreciation from the bottom of my heart for teachers. I'm always a teacher, started this career as a teacher. I will always understand what your journey has been. In addition, I want to also recognize the other members of Sdta and the work that they do, our counselors, our health aides, and just to say thank you. And I hope you all realize you are appreciated. To the bargaining teams, awesome. We pushed through it as a family and as we should have. And I think all in all, it is reflected, our agreement is reflected of the concern and support we have for each and every one of you, but most importantly, the programs and services that we feel are needed to advance student achievement in Sequoia Union High School District. Edith, thank you so much for your partnership, and I look forward to continued growth.
Thank you. Okay. So now I need a motion.
I'll move to approve the new contract.
I will
Second that motion.
enthusiastically second that.
Thank you. And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
I propose we take a little break.
Oh. Okay, we are going to take a 5-minute break. All right, 10-minute break.
can't hear. I can't hear it. I can't hear. Well, I guess I could talk. I can't hear if you guys are trying to respond to me. Let me know what you want to do. I can just pretend and just talk to the screen. Okay, all right. I'm assuming we are on the audit. Is that correct? Great. Okay. Good evening, Superintendent Williams, distinguished board members. What we're bringing before you for your approval today is the result of the district's financial audit for 2020-21. I'm always very excited when we have this time of the year because it's like the report card for my department to see how well we did throughout the year. This report will provide us with an independent opinion on the financial statements and with the independent opinion of the district's financial statements, and as well as identifying any areas of risk. Joining us tonight is Paul Pham, who is one of the engagement partners with Siobhan and Associates. He will be presenting the results of the audit, including any recommendations.
Thank you, Dina, and thank you, Dr. Williams and the board for inviting me out to share with you the results of the June 30th, 2021 audit. And I'm happy to report that the district did have a clean audit this year. And this is not your average run-of-the-mill clean audit. I have to say that it was quite the undertaking. If you remember back a year ago, there was quite a bit going on. You had all the CARES funding that came through with the COVID response, and you had the distance learning. So from all levels of the district, from the top, setting up your distance learning and your tiered engagement down to your teachers, making sure that they're doing the distance learning and reporting it, the participation tracking, the engagement tracking, all those new requirements that rolled out. It definitely took a lot of commitment and planning on everybody's part to ensure this clean audit. So definitely something to be commended. And when you talk about all the CARES funding that came through, there's a lot of internal controls that were a part of that, a lot of new reporting, and then making sure that the funds were properly spent. So you'll see as I go through my presentation, the federal awards made up a big part of your accounting this last year. So what I'd like to do, I'd like to start out with just briefly going over the scope and the standards that we adhere to. Then I'll touch on some of the financial highlights for the year. And finally, I'll wrap up with the results of the audit and open it up for any questions. So the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, they issue a statement of auditing standards that we adhere to in our audit. And because the district is a local government, we follow the Government Accountability Office's government auditing standards that they issue. And because the district expended more than $750,000 in federal awards, we adhere to what's known as the Uniform Guidance. This is issued by the Office of Budget and Management. For this year, we selected the ESSER programs as well as the Corona Relief Fund for our testing this year for the federal compliance piece of it. And then every year, the Education Audit Appeals Panel issues a audit guide, which we use in auditing the state programs for the district. And as part of our audit, we also did the Proposition 39 bond measure audits as well. And we issued a separate report for that. So on to the financial highlights. If I could reference you to page 8 of the report on table 1, you'll see that the district had an increase in net position of just over $17 million. The district is still at a deficit of $58 million. And this is mainly due to the long-term liabilities. And you'll see that most of that is made up of the outstanding bonds that the district has, as well as the obligations related to the district's retirement plans, the PERS and STIRS, as well as the OPEB plans. If you turn to the table 2 on page 9, you'll see that program revenues went up substantially, with operating grants up $9.5 million. And that's mainly from the CARES funding for the COVID response. You'll also see that there was $12.8 million increase in your capital grants. That's coming from the school facilities grant that the district received. With respect to the funds, if you look on table 4 of page 11, you'll see that the general fund was up $12 million for the year, and the district is sitting at a healthy 8.6% reserve. Lastly, in terms of the financial highlights, I wanted to point out that for FY21, there was a new Csba pronouncement that rolled out, which is Csba 84. It's a new accounting standard that was issued, which gave guidance on how to report fiduciary activities. And so what you'll see as a result of that is that there's on page 9 of table 2, you'll see a $12 million, a $2.1 million prior period adjustment. And what that is your associated student body accounts, which previously were reported as fiduciary activities, are now reported as part of the general fund. The district set up a new Fund 08 and as well as resources specifically for your associated student body accounts. Now, those are still associated student body funds. It's just that for reporting purposes, they are reported with the general fund. And so you will no longer see the fiduciary statements related to these associated student body accounts. That's a big change that happened this last year. Finally, onto the audit results. With respect to the financial statements, we issued an unmodified opinion, which basically means that the financial statements were fairly presented in all material respects. With your internal controls over financial reporting and compliance, our audit did not identify any deficiencies in internal controls over financial reporting that we considered to be material weaknesses. And our tests disclosed no instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported under government auditing standards. And lastly, with compliance, the district complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements of state programs. So again, congratulations on a clean audit, even though it was a rough year with lots going on. I wanted to thank Dina and her team for all the help because it was quite a bit, that we had to cover. And so it did take a toll on them, to assist us with the audit. So thank you for all the assistance this year. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? No? Alan?
I have an absolutely tiny nit, which surprised me, but it may explain why he was on the call earlier this evening. At the bottom of page 12, the contact for the district is listed as Enrique Navas, which I believe we can update.
Yeah, yes, we were made aware of that subsequently, but yeah, we have made that change. Thank you.
I do want to comment on the report, but before, I also have a very small question. In prior reports, one of the things I like to do is compare prior reports, then you can see where it's changed. The ADA schedules were not included this year, and I do understand that the ADA average daily attendance, which may not be necessary for us because ADA is not what produces revenue. But on the other hand, it's been nice to see what our ADA has done throughout the years. So I wanted to just ask why it may have been dropped.
Yeah, so it had been dropped because the Education Audit Appeals Panel, as part of their audit guide, they issue guidance on the reporting as well. And that is a schedule that had been removed. But if I could reference you to page 70 of the report, there is a row kind of in the middle of on that schedule there. You'll see average daily attendance. You can see some comparative ADA, including the current year ADA, or not current, but the fiscal year 21 ADA.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit more about the ADA. I was trying to understand because we don't do our budget based off ADA, correct?
Correct.
But help me to understand what you were saying about the ADA as part of.
I was saying it for revenue limit districts or districts that get their money from the state, that's probably an audited figure with a separate schedule because it's so important or critical to revenue. For us, that doesn't have an effect. It would be an indirect on the financial statements.
Yeah.
It is in other contexts, that number is good for us to know.
Your revenue related to your attendance is minimal. If you look on table 2, page 9, you'll see that a substantial part of your revenue is your property taxes, and you'll see this year your property taxes went up $8 million, and so that's the locally funded portion that you guys are mainly relying on.
The comment I'd have to make is this is a clean audit report. This is really important to share with our community in sort of bold, loud voice. It has been true of this district for as long as Alan and I have been here, that the fiduciary care and financial management has really been of the highest order. And I think that's critical to gaining public respect for what we're doing, or the accountability there. So once again, I think Dina and Crystal deserve, and the superintendent deserve a huge amount of credit. And it was noted by Siobhan that especially this past year, where revenue streams have changed in larger ways as a result of the federal funding. So I want to applaud that. I'm going to support or approve the audit report.
I just needed clarification, so thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions? So Chris, was that a motion to approve?
Absolutely.
Okay. And do I have a
I
second?
second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And motion passes. Okay, moving on to our last item, 15.5.
I was waiting to buy.
Oh, no, waiting to buy. Okay, item 15.5, consideration of the selection of the Csba Assembly delegates on the ballot for San Mateo County Subregion 5-B. So this is going to be a little tough. There are 4 people and we can vote for 3. Usually it's 3 for 3, I think. We do. So Ellen, I don't know if do you want to, Ellen is
well,
heavily involved in
yeah.
San Mateo County School Boards Association. He might have an opinion.
Well, my perspective is kind of perhaps a bit stick in the mud, which is that three of the representatives are incumbents, and I have had no sense of our incumbents doing anything other than a stellar job in the role. And I'm somewhat partial that if they are all interested in continuing to carry the community responsibility, I would be supportive of that. But I would welcome your input as well,
Yeah, I
because I
guess
think you've worked even more
Yeah,
closely
my
with
only
them.
comment is Noelia is running for supervisor, right? But she is fantastic because she's a social worker. So she adds a fantastic perspective, but she is running for supervisor. So because of that, we might want to go with Patricia, because then there's the open seat that has to be filled and all of that. I mean, but I can go either way.
Is she then coming off of her school board regardless of the supervisor outcome?
I have not heard that. I don't know.
I don't think you would, well, yeah, I don't know if it's an election year for her current seat.
But this is a 2-year term, right?
No, I mean for her current seat on her school board.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm also willing to be swayed by that argument.
Anybody else have?
Part of me, I mean, I can't say what Noella is doing. We don't know, I know there's all type of stipulation where people are on 2 boards and all this kind of stuff through our county. So I'm not quite sure what the rules are.
She would not be able to, once she's supervisor, she would have to give up.
Oh, she would have to give that up.
Yes. Right? That's correct, right?
But I think until then, I would love to see us support her. And the reason why is that a lot of our county is Spanish speaking. There's a huge special ed population here in our district, as well as other districts. And I think given the information we received around, Bonnie, you tell me if I'm right, if I heard this right, that we're still trying to figure out how do we do the people who are kind of in 2 pockets of English as a second language and receiving special education services, that it would be nice to have someone who understands those type of cross issues. And that would be in the interest of our district and the population that we serve, given the number of Latino families that we have, but also English as a second language in general beyond Spanish.
Okay. I'm fine either way. So we just go with the incumbents.
Carrie, can I ask you this? The agenda item says that ballots are going to be passed to us. Is that correct?
So we actually vote on it tonight. That's the way we vote. That's what we've
Okay.
done in the past. So we make a decision tonight who we're moving forward.
But we do that as a group.
Yes. We pick our 3 and then Laura, we have it down now because we've done it so many times. Laura is the expert. So we submit our choices to CSBA tomorrow or when Laura has time.
Alan, do you want to make a motion on this?
Well, so I think I've heard a clear agreement in support of Clayton and Sophia, and the question is whether our concern about Noelia going for a different seat indicates a lack of confidence on our part of her fulfilling the delegate role, or whether the fact that she is the incumbent with a good track record indicates that we would want to give her our vote. And certainly we could look at Patricia as a candidate for appointment should that seat come empty at the next election. And again, I don't think I have further input than that analysis. There are good arguments for both of them.
So we okay? All right, so we'll just go with the incumbents. So that's Noelia Corzo, Clayton Koo, and Sophia Lane. And so I need a motion for that.
So moved.
Okay, a second. Thank you. And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And the motion passes for those three. Thank you very much. We made it through 9:10. Did a better job with this than our closed session.
Don't we have one more?
One more.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm not done?
No,
15.6, okay.
just one more thing.
Sorry about that.
This should be quick.
Okay.
The resolution before you is the first step in the timeline to allow the continuation of the district's participation in the Maintenance Assessment District program. For those of you who are not familiar with this program, the purpose of this program is to provide a funding source which will offset the district's costs to maintaining its community recreational facilities, like the fields and such that the public uses. So once the report is completed by the engineers, it will be brought back to the board in May for approval. And at that point in time, we'll continue with the process, which will basically suggest the amount that needs to be levied to the county. And then we receive the funding the subsequent school year. So that's kind of the process. Any questions?
Any questions? No questions. Thank you very much.
My only comment is I know that during the past couple of years in the pandemic, when so many of our facilities were shut down, there was concern expressed about the effectiveness with which we were getting our facilities open and available to the public once again. And I just want to be sure that we remain strongly committed to providing the public resource that we're representing with this process. And I do
Thank you
believe
for that
that
reminder.
that is where we lie.
Yeah, I agree with that, and we're very interested in having all facilities open as much as possible to public.
Yeah,
with-
thank you for
with
that
clear
reminder.
indication of when they're available.
Yes.
I think everybody's.
Okay. All right. So
With that, I am happy to move for adoption of this resolution.
thank you. In a second. Thank you very much. And so that's a roll call vote.
Student trustees Osuna. Maybe trustee Thompson. Trustee Stevenson. Trustee Sarver.
Yes.
Vice President Ginn.
Yes.
President Dubois.
Yes.
Motion adopted.
Okay. All right. So time for Board of Trustees comments and agenda setting. One of the things I wanted to bring up is our retreat. The superintendent and I we do have it on, it wasn't on my calendar. Are we sticking with that date? So it's June
20th.
June 20th. So I did not have it on my calendar. So I want to make sure that you all have it on your calendars.
What time?
I don't think we've picked
All
the
day?
time yet. Probably will be all day. Okay. And then I did quite a bit of visiting of schools since our last meeting. So I just wanted to mention, I went to Redwood and it was a great tour. I had not seen the reinvigorated garden, and I saw students that building the chicken coop, which is not a normal chicken coop. It's actually a mini house, and they were working with a tradesman, putting on gutters. They put on I'm a realtor and I can't say the word roof. Is that right? I say it like rough, roof. I can't say it. I'm always afraid of that word. And they poured a real foundation, and it was just amazing seeing the kids build with the tradesmen. So I was so inspired. I also went to MA's National History Day, and Trustee Stevenson was there. It was magnificent. Oh my gosh. I was a judge. I was a terrible judge. I judged documentaries. I loved everything. I loved everything so much. And then I was bad. I just loved it all so much. So I said to the teachers, I mean, you're going to have to really look at my judging. I also went to the Youth of the Year Award, which was so inspiring. 3 of our students were up for Youth of the Year, and our middle school student won. I don't know how, I mean, speaking of judging, I don't know how they could pick. That was also very inspiring. And then I'm with Simone was still here. I've been doing some mentoring at Tide. I'm mentoring 2 kids. It's so much different this year doing it on Zoom. But I'm really, through that experience, I'm feeling like I'm getting to know Tide better. And 2 of the kids are in the, they're dual enrollment and really discovering their passion. So I'm learning so much from the kids. One is involved in computer science, and the other one is involved in marketing. And anyway, it's just amazing. And the one kid who I felt I was having a little trouble bonding to, I think he's getting used to me. So he was talking more. So that was really good. The last thing I wanted to mention is I'm doing the model SARB judging again. I'm kind of a harder judge on that. But last year when I did it, I was really inspired by some of the model SARBs that are out there in California. So I will be probably, again, forwarding some of these model SARB applications because I think there's sometimes people have this wrong idea of what SARBs are all about, and they are transformative. And just one quick example, in one district, when kids were having trouble accessing technology, this district didn't wait for anybody. They put families in hotels and motels. They found the community resources. They reached out to the community and they said, we have got to have our kids online. And that's one of the model SARB applications that we're going to be reviewing. So anyway, look for stuff from me. Anybody else have anything? Chris?
I have 3 items I'll go through pretty quickly. The first is the superintendent and I met informally with Santa Clara Supervisor Joe Simidian to get his insights on workforce housing. Joe he really initiated a workforce housing project in Palo Alto and neighboring communities. He distilled his advice down to 3 things that I'll mention. First one was identify the land. You sort of have to do that first. You're going to have to find partners to support this financially. It's unlikely that the project will carry its own financial burden or do it on its own. In their case, they got a $25 million gift from Facebook that helped out with this. He gave us a couple ideas on financial leads that I'm not going to talk about here. And the third thing was sort of caution that these projects take time, and so you want to work in parallel tracks on as much as you can. The first thing I want to do with this is share the detail with my partner across the way on what we learned, and Joe offered us some people we might follow up with that I think will be really helpful. So that was very encouraging. Mr. Sarver and I met Monday with Zach Worthen and Crystal to talk about the redistricting. I think the superintendent informed us that unfortunately we got different advice from the county that said there are 2 districts that should be adjusted. And we've got a preliminary look at some options, and I expect that's going to come back to the board at the next meeting. I think what Alan and I underscored was keeping to the principles that the board had the first time around when we talked about this, and probably keeping it as simple as possible.
Are the changes just going to be between your 2 areas, or is it going to be a shifting between someone else's?
So that's jumping ahead on things, but well, no, it's fine. We looked at 3 options at the time. One of them was just a shift between the 2. And I think what Alan and I came to the conclusion about, or will recommend to our colleagues, is that just keep the shift between those 2. The rest are close enough that it doesn't matter. I guess one of the ways, but this can be part of the conversation. One of the ways I was looking at it was if you were a resident there, I'm concerned that residents don't actually know what district they're in. Right. And if we keep on changing them periodically, it's even worse. Right. And ideally, you'll know who your representative is. But the board will have a chance to talk about that. And I think we'll get a recommendation. Anything is that the final thing I wanted to raise is a question. I was reading about the California State Seal of Civic Engagement that can go on diplomas. and wondered, this was, I think, a CSBA write-up, and at a time when civic engagement needs more attention nationally, I wondered whether anybody in the district, well, whether there might be interest in this. I thought I would begin in conversation with the superintendent. Ultimately, it's something principals, I think, would have to care about, too, or we'd have to get a sense of things. But at the outset, they recognize, I think, 26 school districts in the state that make this award to their students, and it's something they can carry on their CV.
I love that idea. It feels like it goes with our vision and goals that we acknowledge that. And I know coming from East Palo Alto, we have a strong value of creating civic engagement in youth. And it seems to be happening all over the place with climate change and so many other things. And how much of an honor that would be to say to some kids or students, I'm sorry, young people, you're growing up to be a good citizen is just as important as going to college and career, because we want people to come back and be in public service, have great jobs, and make an influence. So I would love to figure out how we can get that on the agenda.
Done.
So I've continued to be in a lot of various and sundry meetings with the Sustainability Committee. And there is good progress there on putting together a survey, or actually two surveys, one for staff and one for students, that will be both an audit of sustainability offerings across our curriculum and interest in sustainability offerings. And that is being aimed for being ready for the week of Earth Day, and have it be a district-wide activity to really engage students and staff and gather that. And then this Friday is the beginning of a series of symposia for various CTE pathways around the district, job fairs, presentations from community partners at many of our different sites. And I've been invited to kind of come and be a little bit of a fly on the wall and listen in to many of them. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
I'll just say two things that students have brought up that I'd be interested to just get an update on. One, a while ago, we heard about the bathrooms. I'd be curious the percentage open of the bathroom, if they're 100% open or not. And then the food that whatever update about, I don't know how the decisions are made about the food or what's possible or what the rules are, but I'd be interested in just understanding what's going on. I don't have any ask other than just to become informed. Yeah, about how that, right.
Should that be
I don't know that it needs to be that. If it could be, I mean, it should be informed, then we can decide if it's something that we need to talk about in open session or not, but.
It occurred to me also that there may be a fair amount of synergy between that effort and what the sustainability community is doing, so.
Sorry. First of all, I just want to let you guys know what I've been attending. I go to Redwood on Friday to go to their Black History show or celebration. Want to wish everyone a Black History Month and want to share some things that are happening in the community. Right here where Cost Plus used to be, there is a mobile Black History Museum. Next year, I would love to partner with them to really talk about education. And I know that they have some information about separate but equal and all the movement around that for integration. But I'd love to put some of our history out there and how we're trying to dismantle some of those things that really made it difficult, like the closing of Ravenswood High School and some of the equity work. It would be a great opportunity to put our story out there. Another thing that's happening is the Nairobi movement that was in East Palo Alto, which is more of the Afrocentric education system that was in East Palo Alto. Let me get my phone out. They will be speaking through the library, San Mateo County Library. I'll send it via email to everyone. But they are going to be doing the Nairobi movement It's going to be, my goodness, I have it here, February 22nd at 6 p.m. as part of their Equity Through Art series, a conversation with community elders. I would strongly suggest, if you haven't heard about Nairobi, really listen to them, because I think they transformed so many students' lives. And I think with some of our, as we continue to learn how to serve certain communities, there might be something that, there's this thing called Sankofa, go back to go forward. Like, you learn from what it is from your historians, your elders, and then you move forward, right? And so there might be something there that gives us indication of what we should be doing. So I wanted to share those few things with you all. I also wanted to let you know that I attended some of the community conversations at Sequoia. It was awesome. The Bellhaven Fair, woo, woo. Thanks so much for that. The people in my community were so excited. And in that area, thank you, Rich, and all from all the board members for coming. That actually came out of a conversation with Councilwoman Cecilia Taylor and her desire for us not to be a one-hit wonder, but to really spend time in the community, listening to people and being a good partner. And then went to MA, was it National History Day? That was phenomenal. I just want to say thank you, MA. And I really want to go to more stuff. I really want to go to Carmont. Nobody's in the room but us, but I want to go to Carmont. And I really want to go to Woodside. I just say it a little bit louder. Maybe somebody on the line could tell me how to get there and what to be involved in. But I really want to go see those two schools, because I believe we need to have our eyes on every school, and not just the ones in great proximity to me as far as my living. And then something hit me the other day. There's a couple of ideas I want to talk about. One is I heard a student say, this year has been hard. I still feel like I'm a freshman, even though they're a junior, one is a senior. And so that hit me very hard when I heard a student say it. They didn't say it to me as a board member, because, I'm just out and about doing my thing. And that hit me hard about some of our students still feeling, in other professional language, they're delayed, right? They're emotionally delayed. They still feel new at this whole thing called education. And so I want us to think about that, like really, how do we just love on our kids right where they are? And Carrie, I feel your heart when I heard this story, like, what do we do about that? And I don't think it's traditional mental health. I don't think it's all those things, but I'm just wondering. So that's something I wanted to put out there. And the second thing that I heard in that same context and vein, the person also talked about, I don't even tell anybody that I'm going to community college, because some people say, oh, I would never, is what someone told me, not in our school setting, in the community setting, thank God. And so I'm wondering, how can we celebrate where each and every one of our kids are? That's why I like the civic piece of it, right? Because I may not be doing that great in school, but I am giving back to my community. How can we celebrate and have signings for community college? How can we do that for universities, the trade programs or the skill programs that some of our kids are going to? I think it's time we start celebrating, bringing the joy back to education.
Well, that's why her superintendent's conversation was so magnificent about community college, right? And really celebrating our kids that go there. So
exactly. And we will host a district-wide college and career post-secondary intention signing day.
Great. Whoop, whoop. Okay. And then my last thing is, I heard from a couple of students who graduated, we need to talk about financial literacy and real math and real world investing, all those kinds of things. And I'm not for sure where that fits in, but I think our students are not getting all that they need to be independent when they leave. So with that vein, happy Black History Month. Thank you all for a great and quick meeting.
If I could, I'd like to throw in a quick riff on what Chani's just brought up, which was that in the last meeting about the Spotlight College and Career Guide, the big topic that came up in that meeting, and that was a takeaway of work, is how do we really go about celebrating the opportunity to go to community college and make sure that we're not sending a message of 4-year or bust to our students, but sending a message of opportunity and engagement from where they are to all of our students. And I think that's really a core piece of work that we're all engaging on next.
Yes, through our Promise Project, yes.
One thing I forgot to tell you this, I went to the Equity and Diversity Committee. It was so wonderful to see people back in the room. Last month, they couldn't meet, everybody was exhausted, so they took time off from the meeting, but we met this Monday. And what they wanted me to share is that we are still trying to get every school site EDC, and that they have a structure to do the work, And we are working with the UC on the initiative and looking at the climate study. And they had great conversations coming off the January 31st kickoff. And they want to highlight that the racial affinity groups are the first fellow cohorts that groups at all sites and having critical conversations about racism. So those cohorts are happening. And next time, they would love to come in April, sometime around that, to do a presentation for our board. So I just wanted to make sure you all knew about that. I think the other thing is to spread the love a little bit. I think if someone wants to come and listen to the EDC and swap me out just to come hear one meeting, I think it'd be nice for you guys to hear the hearts of the people. They are a tenacious group of committed men and women and allies and BIPOC staff. And they are willing to get their hands dirty, and they're committed to our district. I'm hoping that this EDC helps us to keep and retain our staff so that we can continue to have the diversity from all walks of life, all backgrounds in social economics, really serving our kids. But they are tired, but they're so committed to the work, so committed to the vision of what Dr. Williams has set forth, and all the efforts that we're doing through developing your own. We had a couple of people from diverse backgrounds to join that effort, but they need some love. And I just want to remind us, COVID wasn't just about the virus. There was also a racial reckoning during that time. And they have held students who maybe it wasn't direct, maybe it was direct, maybe it was just me feeling some kind of way because I see things on the news, but they're holding those students who are struggling with being different on campus or finding their footing or dealing with isolation. In my community, we're dealing with gentrification. And so one day you got a huge community of folks, and now you can't hardly find people who look like you. And so I want us to be mindful of all teachers and all individuals, social, emotional, and support and love that we need to give to them. But they're also, this group is especially tired because they're holding the burden. And there's tension between, George Floyd is over, I guess racism doesn't exist, to no, that was just the beginning of it. It just opened up a can of worms. And now we're trying to heal our community. And so I just want to put that out there. They didn't ask me to say that piece. That's coming from Shawnee's heart. But I just want to say how proud I am of them, and hopefully we can make space for them. Thank you.
So I would like to go to that meeting. I would. Yep.
Yeah, I'd underscore what you said about, so the board role is more listening there, I think, than anything else. And so it would be pretty easy to swap people in and out. And it's a great group to listen to. So I'd do the same swap with anybody also.
Okay, we need to let our staff go home. Is it early enough? It needs to be earlier, right? So can I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Alan.
Second.
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 Thank you, and good night.